Test 1, 2.
Testing. Good. Good evening and welcome to CCVBS's Nightly News, where old news matters and we hope nothing is breaking. Tonight's top story is that a man was seen being swallowed by a gigantic fish, but more on that later. Let's start the newscast off with our nightly segment, Working for the Lord, with Mr. Gene. Gene, I heard you have some mighty good-looking guests with you tonight.
Well, thank you, Drew. We do have some very pretty visitors tonight, but my wife's in here. No one is anywhere remotely as pretty as you, dear. These ladies hold no candle to you whatsoever. They are very nice, but make sure I have that very clearly laid out. There you go. Thank you. These ladies, in all seriousness, have some very fascinating stories to tell, and they are each mentioned by name in the Bible. There are lots of people in the Bible who are never mentioned by name, but to be mentioned by name as these ladies were means that you have a very special place in history. You hold a special place in history because of your actions and your heart. Some of your actions are for helping others and some last for eternity. Please welcome our very special guests tonight, 4 ladies who are mentioned in the New Testament: Dorcas, Lydia, Mary, and Martha. Give them a great big hand. Will Martha be joining us?
Yeah, she's just finishing up some work.
Okay, well, let's start with you, Lydia. That is a very, very beautiful purple outfit you have on. Did you make that yourself?
Yes, thank you, I did. I don't typically wear the purple I make, but I figure you are only on CCVBS's Working for the Lord once in a lifetime. It's so neat how a television broadcast can reach so many people at one time.
Oh, it is. It can be very, very nerve-wracking sometimes, knowing how many people are watching, but I'm sure you must be used to that. Didn't you often open your home to missionaries that travel the world and probably talk about you and your hospitality to so many people?
Mary, come on, we've got to set up the snack room.
Shh, Martha, I'm listening to Lydia. I'm so sorry, Gene and Lydia, go on.
Well, as I was saying, Lydia, you opened up your house to missionaries who traveled the world spreading the gospel. Tell us about that.
Jean, you make it sound all fancy and grand. I'm just a business lady that has enough extra to share with people who need a spot to stop, rest, and refuel. I learned so much from these missionaries. They not only tell me about the lands that they have seen, but of the different cultures. It's also wonderful to hear about the lives they are changing and how people are following Christ.
So would you say that you can be a very strong business person and a Christian at the same time?
Absolutely. It's not always easy to balance the two, but if you put Christ first, you will be blessed. I've learned that along the way.
Well, I do know that we never stop learning. I learn something new every day. I learned something new last night that we'll be talking about in a few minutes. Dorcas, you also make clothing. Is that correct?
Martha, shh, please. Martha, I'm trying to learn. We'll get the work done when the time is right. I'm so sorry, my friends.
Okay. As I was saying, Dorcas, you make clothing, right? Do you make it to sell like Lydia does or for yourself?
No, I actually make the majority of the clothing for the widows in our community.
Did she say widows? Is she making curtains?
Martha, she's making clothes for widows, the ladies whose husbands have died. come here and listen. This is good. Come on.
Sisters, 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 they can get on your last nerve, right? But you're going to help them and love them always. I feel the same way about the widows in my community. I love them deeply and want to help them in any way I can.
Why are widows so important to you?
June, during my time period, when a lady's husband dies, so does her safety and way of life. Married women did not earn money at all. Shame. The married women made sure the children were cared for, though, and that their husbands were fed when they came home. Without their husbands, they were not guaranteed a place to continue living or means to buy the necessities of life. I want to care for them because I have those means.
Well, it's very, very kind of you to take care of those women. I wish more people would take care of others and make an actual effort for it. And the difference, I suppose, is that in today's world, women have all sorts of choices. Women can be keepers at home, they can be working, they can do both. They can be married, they can be single, they can have children, they can not have children. They have all sorts of options that apparently they did not have back in your day.
That is true, but I'm just doing what is right, what the Lord would have us do.
I think you sound much more like one of the superheroes of the Bible to me.
I don't know about that, but everyone should do what Jesus tells us.
So, by the way, guys, ladies, I wanted you to know that this, Jean, Lydia, Dorcas, this is Martha, my sister.
Sorry I'm late to the conversation. Do you realize that I've been doing all the work while you've just been sitting up here listening to these stories?
Oh, don't worry about that. Dorcas was just telling us about her work with widows.
It's funny that you acted like listening to stories was a waste of time, Martha, and that we should be working and getting ready. I mean, really, housework is always there. It'll always get done somehow. We need to be ready for when Jesus comes again. Listening and learning from our elders is one way to prepare ourselves, to be ready for that day. We should always take time to spend with people who are older and wiser than ourselves. They have so much they can teach us. Just think, you learned about me from the Bible, but I'm no different than today's women. I had a profession, I used it to help others, and good came from it. And anybody can do that today.
You're right. Jesus has told me before that I need to stop and listen.
Preparing for an activity is the Lord's work too, Martha. By working hard, you are being an example to the younger people who may one day want to do what you are doing. You want to present yourself in the best light possible. That means you care about the example that you're setting. This is a very important characteristic to have.
Well, just so everyone knows, I do help out and do my own chores. Martha just goes a little further than the rest. She does it out of love.
Oh, thanks, Mary.
It's really great to see you ladies supporting each other. You are leaders that every person, whether a man or a woman, child or grown up, can learn from. We've learned that you can be a good business person and still be a very fine Christian. We've learned that we can use our talents to help others. We've also learned that listening helps us in many, many ways. I want to thank all of you for joining us here tonight on CCVBS. Thank you for letting me get to know each one of you. I can see why each one of you are mentioned by name in the Bible. I'm sure our audience will agree that not only are these ladies very beautiful ladies on the outside, but they are wonderful, beautiful ladies when it comes to what's really important on the inside. Drew, take it back to the news desk.
That sure was a powerful segment, Gene. We so often focus on the men of the Bible, but women are just as important in our spiritual growth and lives. The roles are just different. Now let's head over to Devontae with tonight's weather forecast. Devontae, is the weather looking melodious tonight?
It's a Rocky reference, because these women up here are working so hard. It's inspiring me to exercise and be up and active during the heat. That's why I got my workout clothes on. So we're about to get up and we're going to work out our minds and we're going to work out our feet. But first we're going to work out our minds. So everybody stand up. Stand up. I need 2 helpers to help me exercise, to help me work out this crowd. Clara. Sawyer. Carly, you can get them up too. All right. First, we're going to work out our minds. So, This song is fast. We're going to sing it a few times. But if you don't get it the first time, you'll get it the next few. All right? If you know it, sing out loud. I am a C. I am a CH. I'm a CHRISTIAN. And I have CHRISTN, my HERT, and I will LOV, love them all the TIME time. I am a C. I am a CH. I'm a CHRISTIN. And I have CHRISTN, my HERT, and I will LOV, love them all the TIME time. Simple. 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 Okay. We're going to go, hey, listen. We're going to do it really slow, and then we're going to speed it up, okay? I am a C. I am a CH. I am a CHRISTIN. And I have CHRISTN, my HERT, and I will LOV, love them all the TIME time. You get it? We're going really fast. Ready? I am a C. I'm a CH. I'm a CHRISTIN. I have CHRISTN, my HOV, LOV, love them all the TIME time. Simple. Now we're going to get up and moving. So I need everybody who's participating to take a seat. Take a seat. Take a seat. Sit down. Sit down. There was 3 eyes, O King, who had 2,000 men, who march them up and march them down again. And when you're up, you're up. And when you're down, you're down. And when you're only halfway up, you're neither up or down. We're working out today. All right, ready? There was 3 eyes, O King, who had 2,000 men, who march them up a hill and march them down again. And when you're up, you're up. And when you're down, you're down. And when you're only halfway up, you're neither up or down. I think we can go faster. Anybody breaking down the sweat yet? Faster? All right. Hey, you got to get ready, all right? Is everybody locked in? All right. There was my ring. We had 2,000 men who march up and march down again. When you're up, you're up. When you're down, down. When you're only out, you need up and down. All right. Everybody stand up. We'll do booster when we finish. All right. I messed this up the first day, but we're going to get it right today. All right? We're going to sing about a hippopotamus because we're getting big and strong like hippopotamuses. Show of hands, who knows how a hippopotamus moves? How do they move? How do they move?
Like me, slow.
They move strong and they move slow like Jason Jones. So we're going to sing this nice and slow. Ready? In the beginning, God made the seas and the forest filled with trees and the mountains up so high. At the top, he placed the sky, fingerprints were everywhere. Just to show how much he cares. In the middle, he had some fun. Made a hippopotamus weighed a ton. Hip, hip, hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, God made all of us. Hip, hip, hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, God made all of us. All right. You guys don't seem to know what a hippopotamus is. When you get a hippo, you gotta go wide, you gotta go low, you gotta go slow, all right? Adults in the back, you gotta stand up and help these kids out. Come on. Kids, get your parents to stand up. Stand. There we go. All right, guys. All right, listen. We're going to go low and slow. In the beginning, God made the seas and the forest filled with trees and the mountains up so high. At the top, he placed the sky. Fingerprints are everywhere. Just to show how much he cared. In the middle, he had some fun. Made hippopotamus to weigh a ton. Hip, hip, hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, God made all of us. Hip, hip, hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, God made all of us. All right, everybody give your parents a round of applause for dancing and bringing you to VBS. Okay, so our last thing, this is the last time we're doing this. So we're doing winner takes all. Whoever wins between the boys and the girls hold the title for the next year. All right, you hold the title for Booster. So, we're going to go boys first, okay? Boys first. So boys, you got to be loud and proud. Ready? Booster, booster. Kiddos, it's your turn. Clara and Carly are going to lead you guys. Go. Donnie today is our guest surprise amazing tall judge. So Donnie, if you had to pick a winner to hold the crown for the next year, who would it be?
I think the girls won the first and the boys won the last two.
Yeah.
I think it was the girls tonight. They did really good.
All right. All right, guys. So we're about to pass it back over to Drew, but I want to encourage all of you guys and all the parents in the back. Life is like weather. It goes up, it goes down. Sometimes it's super sunny, sometimes it's super rainy. I encourage you guys to keep moving forward no matter what. Can you do that for me? Keep moving forward no matter what. Keep trusting in God. And with that, that's the last you're seeing of this weatherman. Back to Drew.
Testing. There we go. Thank you, Devontae. It just so happens I was given an update on the man swallowed by the big fish. His name is Jonah, and he was supposed to be on his way to Nineveh, but he thought he could run from God. I'm guessing he I'm guessing he learned he was wrong about that. We hope to have further information in a few days when hopefully that fish will spit him out. Thanks for joining us tonight on CCVBS News, and remember, whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. All right. All right, we're now going to get ready for our prayer. All right, so everybody bow your heads. We're getting ready for our prayer. Here we go. Lord, we thank you for giving us this night. We thank you for allowing us to have our time of Vacation Bible School. Lord, we thank you for the lessons that we've learned. We thank you for the teachers and for the many hands that have helped and prepare us this week for the things that we've heard. We ask, Lord, that you would help us to take these lessons out into our world, to find opportunities around us to teach the gospel and to show what we've learned to others. We ask, Lord, that you would help us not just to reflect on this at times like VBS, but throughout our lives. Again, as we have said, in wherever we are, whether in word or deed, whatever we're doing, to do it in your name. And we thank you for allowing us to have the mission of working in your kingdom. We ask that you would equip us to be able to do that better every day. We ask that you'd forgive us when we sin and fail you, and we pray this prayer in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, we're about to dismiss to class now, so just remember a couple of rules that we have during VBS. Remember what we've talked about. We're going to walk in the hallways, not run. We're going to use inside voices. Don't push past people, right? And then we should also listen to our teachers and the other adults who are going to help make tonight a good night for us. Can everybody give me a big thumbs up if you agree with that? There we go. All right, and that's what I like to see. So, all right, first up, if you were in 4th through 6th grade, right back, where are my 4th through 6th teachers? Maybe. I bet you know where you're going if you're 4th through 6th. All right. Thank you, 4th through 6th. All right, if you are in 2nd and 3rd, I think I got that right tonight, right? Good, right over there. Thank you. Thank you, Davis. All right, and what does that leave? That leaves 4s through 1st, is that right? Yes, all right. Right back here with Miss Lee and Miss Amy. And then if you are 2 or 3 or following somebody of that age, please meet Miss Gayla and Miss Leanne. They're right back there ready to take you. And Miss Pam York, I think, with the nursery. Yes, right back here. Very good. And then if you're in the youth class, Devontae has you. If you are college age or young adult, you're with me, and we'll be at that far room as far down to the right as you can go. And adults here in the auditorium. Thanks, everybody.
Well, good evening. Is it on? Does it sound like it's on? Oh, I'll need to talk louder. Is that what you're telling me, Jason? No. Good evening, everybody. We're finishing our study of the book of Ruth tonight. Thanks, everybody, for being here. The importance of the book of Ruth, I'm going to place tonight on the fact that I don't think it really should have been called the book of Ruth. Remember, we talked about the fact that the names of the books of the Bible were not established by God. Those are human names, titles put with the books. And I think you'll see, I hope to help you see, what I've already come to the conclusion of is that it really ought to be named something else, because the whole flow of the book is really about a different person in many ways than Ruth. But before we get to that, David told me something last night. I wish he had spoken up. He thinks he's new, so he's not going to be speaking up too much yet. He needs to get over that real quick. Told me something that I wish I was like, wow, if I had thought of that and said it, I would have felt so smart. But I wasn't very smart, and he thought of this, which was a great thing. You remember last night we talked about, anybody need an extra handout for tonight, right here? Anybody? We talked about the fact that in the middle of the night, you had Boaz and Ruth. And Ruth had gone to Boaz, and with no one else around, presented the potential temptation to Boaz. And I think that's understood when you read through it, as we talked about last night. Boaz and Ruth both refused to fall into that temptation and maintained purity by not sinning against God and themselves. However, the thought that David came up with, I'll turn it over to him, is a great example. Go ahead.
Not too long after, someone in his lineage, David, was not able to do that. He was not where he was supposed to be. He was not with his army. He was home on the rooftop. And what did he do? He looked and saw Bathsheba, and he coveted, and he set in motion this wide-ranging plan to get her and to have her husband taken care of, murdered, and all the wide-ranging consequences from that, just that one decision. Or it wasn't necessarily just one decision, it was multiple decisions of putting himself in the wrong place and not doing what Boaz did and Ruth, which was maintaining purity and integrity. He went the opposite direction. And we talk about him being someone who's a man after God's own heart, which he was, but we overlook Boaz in favor of David, which is fine in other ways, but I don't think Boaz gets the credit if you compare him to what David had done, which was much worse, so in that case.
And Boaz is the great-grandfather of David. So David should have known his own family history, one would think, and if he had remembered his own family history, then when he had been on top of his rooftop in the cool of the evening, he would have turned around and gone back in, rather than falling into temptation, which his great-grandfather avoided. So I thought what a great counterexample that was. Ties directly into the lineage of the end of the book of Ruth, which talks about leading to David, and exact opposite action. In chapter 3, there was no guarantee, there was no predefined outcome. It could easily have gone the other way. They both were free moral agents, and like any one of us, can choose to do the right thing or choose to act inappropriately. And both Ruth and Boaz came out of chapter 3 with flying colors, their integrity intact, and had chosen to respect themselves and to respect God. So I appreciated that. I told him last night, I said, man, you got to speak up with that. That's awesome. I mean, if only I had thought of that earlier this week, right? But I'm going to think about it from now on. Maybe I might give you credit the next time or two I say it out loud, but my memory will eventually go, and I'll think it was my own idea. Just once, twice, all right. All right, so let's take a look at chapter 4, and let's finish it tonight. I promise you, unlike the first night where we went the whole hour, we will get out earlier tonight, and I do know there are some goodies down the hall. I think there's some more popcorn back there, right? Yeah. The Kaisers have been... Talking about popcorn?
No. I'm talking about the goodies down there. If we could use some help after the kids get through to set that up for Sundays, fifth Sunday.
There is a meal, fifth Sunday meal here Sunday in our church service, a meal, and then another church service. And so as Donnie says, let's don't just eat some popcorn and try to hightail it out. We all got places to be, but it could use just a few minutes help from everybody to move the tables and chairs around a bit and get it all set up for Sunday's meal. So thank you for that reminder. So again, there will be at least popcorn down there and probably a few other things. There's still some bananas left from the first night. I've had one each night. They're still good, so have a banana. It's the healthiest thing down in the little food area. Got the timeline here for the book of Ruth. Remember, it's smack toward the last third or quarter of the period of the book of Judges. Roughly 100, 150 years before the birth of David. I was trying to think back to my great-grandfather, and he was born in 1878, I think it was. So that's 140, 150 years ago. So David's great-grandfather would probably have been 150-ish years before he was born. And if David was born there at 1040, that puts the events of Ruth around 1200 BC, roughly, right? And so that is pretty much smack in between the timeline here for the events from the period of the Judges. Let's jump right on in to chapter 4. Let's review a little bit here. There's been a lot of setbacks in the book of Ruth, a lot of setbacks. In chapter 1, Naomi and her husband, Elimelech, and her 2 sons were forced to leave their homeland in Judah because of a famine. Remember, they left their homeland, left their land of inheritance because of a famine. Then Naomi's husband died. Elimelech dies over in Moab. Her sons had married 2 ladies from Moab, 2 Moabite women, and for 10 years, both of these daughter-in-laws that she had were childless. Then her sons died, leaving Naomi with her 2 daughter-in-laws who are now widows, all 3 of them widows together in the same house. She views this turn of events as having been brought upon her by God, that God has struck her. God is in control, that's absolutely correct, but she attributes this to active actions, to direct actions that God has taken against her, and views her life in a very, very bitter way. Even though Ruth cleaves, holds on to Naomi, chapter 1 ends with Naomi's bitter complaint. Look what she says. I went away full. She left Judah full. She left Bethlehem, where she was from, full. She had a husband, 2 sons. I left full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. I've lost everything that I had loved. I'm coming back empty. And then she makes this specific statement, the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. She tells the people not to call her Naomi, which means sweet or pleasant, but to call her Mara, which means bitter. And that's why. She feels like, I don't have any sweetness left in my life. There's nothing enjoyable left. Everything I have is bitter. And she felt it deep within her. That's chapter 1. Then in chapter 2, Naomi gets a little glimmer of hope. They've made it back to Bethlehem, and we find out in chapter 2 that there is a relative still alive. She had told her 2 daughter-in-laws, Orpah and Ruth, that it's not as if I'm going to have more sons. You can't wait around 15, 18 years from now for me to have boys that you could marry to carry on the lineage and the descent and the inheritance of our family. There's no reason for you to hang around with me. Stay here, go find another husband, have a life, right? Have a life. But when she gets back to Bethlehem, we are told Boaz, who appears, is a relative, a relatively near relative, and that makes him a possible husband for Ruth. The law and the book of Deuteronomy had said that if a man died and his wife was childless, that a brother of the dead husband or a near relative should marry the woman who is now a widow, a childless widow, and raise up children for an inheritance to the dead brother so that the property and the name of that portion of the family would carry on. One of the reasons I think that was the case, we talked a little bit about it up here in our joking CCT VBS segment up here. 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, maybe even 1,000 years ago, options for women were much, much more limited than they are today. And so if you were a widow, it wasn't as if you had many options for having some kind of a job or income on your own. That just wasn't in the cards. And so you were dealing with charity on handouts, the care and support of others to survive, unless you found another husband. That's a horrible way to think about the world, but that's what was the circumstances and culture and everything else 3,000 years ago. I, for one, am very glad, being the father of a daughter, that that's not the way things are today. All of us should be. Women have essentially all the possible options that you could possibly want. I work for a woman. She's a wonderful woman. I call her boss lady. I mean, in a fun way, right? So fortunately, she still puts up with that for now. But who cares whether your boss is a man or a woman? None of us should, right? So that's the world we are living in. That was not the world that Ruth and Naomi were living in. When Ruth meets Boaz, she actually, the text says, happened to come into the field owned by Boaz, which I believe is a laughing statement in there. I think it's meant to be that way. There's no way that was just a random chance that she just happened to wander around in a field near Bethlehem and wandered into the field owned by a relative of Naomi. That is God's providence bringing her into the field of Boaz. He treats her very kindly. He checks after her. He makes sure that she is going to be able to collect enough grain to support her, Naomi and herself, that she will be able to be left alone by the men, that she can rest and have water. He takes a special kindness in looking toward her. And we also had found out that he was infused with God, is the language I'm using, because when he met his employees, he greeted them in the name of God. It was second nature to him. He was a apparently very good man, a very godly man. And so when he meets Ruth, he doesn't actively propose. I mean, he's just talking to her. I guess that could happen. It does in the movies. What's your name? Ruth? Marry me. I mean, I guess that happens all the time in the movies. But it doesn't happen here in Ruth chapter 2. He doesn't even make any overt moves towards showing interest. He simply is very kind to her, which in and of itself is a pretty good set of first moves. Let's be honest with it. Kindness is probably the way we all should by default, treat other people. And it's never a bad way if you happen to be interested and you're in the dating frame of mind to treat somebody you've just met. Be kind to them. Be kind to them. You never know what's going to happen. The chapter closes with Ruth having told Naomi about running into Boaz. You won't believe who I met today. He was so kind. I'm sure she's telling the story just as it came out. And that, I suspect, caused Naomi to go to bed going, She knows who Boaz is. She knows that he's a potential husband for Ruth due to this law that a widowed woman would marry some brother or near relative. So maybe overnight, Ruth has this dream, or she's laying awake plotting, and in chapter 3, she hatches her plan. Ruth and Naomi make a risky move in the middle of the night. And it is a risky move because the outcome is not predetermined of what necessarily Ruth will either do or allow, or what Boaz is going to do or set in motion when Ruth goes to him in the middle of the night. Ruth goes to Boaz on the threshing floor. And I don't remember if it was you, somebody else pointed out that he's such a hard worker. Apparently he's sleeping in more or less the barn or the threshing floor. He hasn't gone home to his house. Maybe he worked so late that he just decided to collapse over here, pull up some kind of blanket, and sleep where the job is occurring. This is an industrious, very hard-working man. And so he's sleeping there, and Ruth goes and finds him in the middle of the night and says, in effect, I want you to spread your wings over me as my husband. And we talked about last night how that language in the original is ambiguous as to what she actually asked him. It can be interpreted as a much more direct statement of something else. It is open-ended. And the people hearing this for the first time probably would have gone, oh, what? She said, what? That kind of thing. We know how it's going to end. We know nothing's going to happen in the middle of the night. People hearing it for the first time would not have known that. Ruth doesn't know what's going to happen here in the middle of the night either. And so he talks to her and says, essentially that, you are a kind woman, but I cannot take you as my wife because there's somebody who's closer to you in a relative fashion, so to speak. And neither one of them in any way lose their integrity. They don't lose their relationship with God over making a bad choice. There are, as we all know, there are lots of people when there's two people together in the middle of the night, nobody around, do not choose the way Ruth and Boaz did. And it's been that way throughout much or most of human history. They're a wonderful example of how to interact and treat one another, even when you're out in the boonies, so to speak. Somebody told me, people don't use that word anymore, out in the middle of nowhere with no one else around. That's a great example to teach our children, right? To teach our children that you can respect each other even when you're alone. So he says, you're thinking, wow, this is great. This tragedy that struck Naomi and Ruth in the middle of it, it's going to all work out. Here's the man riding in on the white horse. And in this case, he would have been on the white horse because he's the one that would be able to provide for these two ladies in the circumstances and the times in which they're living. But there's a kind of a downfall to this hope that suddenly had shown up here in Ruth chapter 3. There's another man who, according to Hebrew customs, has a prior claim. What a horrible way of thinking about that. He's got a prior claim on Ruth. He's ahead of Boaz in terms of exercising this responsibility that's in the book of Deuteronomy. Boaz is not the nearest kinsman to Ruth. There's somebody else in between, right? Now, this impeccably honest Boaz, and I don't have any concerns talking about him that way, given his response in the middle of the night. That's an incredible response, incredible restraint. He will not proceed with pursuing marrying Ruth. Sounds like he wants to. I mean, he was real nice to her in chapter 2. He's complimenting her like crazy here, even in chapter 3. He's not going to do anything like that or about that without following the proper protocols or the proper procedures. That's very, very mechanical sounding, doesn't it? It sounds like a business person. But he's not going to do it without following the way things are supposed to go. And so chapter 3 ends with a setback. Oh, you're hearing this story the first time. It's going to work out. What? Oh, no. And so now you're falling back. What's going to happen? And that's how chapter 3 ends. We all thought it was going to be Boaz. It might not be. So we pick up with chapter 4. In chapter 4, Boaz goes to the city gate where the official business was done. The older men would sit at the city gate. Today it would be a coffee shop, I suppose, maybe. But they would sit at the city gate, and if you had a problem, a dispute with someone, or even a family problem, you would often go, and as these men were sitting near the city gate, you would tell them the story. You would lay out the facts for them, and they would essentially judge what the proper course of action was. They would be like the arbitrators who would make things out. That's where they hung out for this stuff, right? So he's going to the city gate looking for this relative who's closer to Ruth than he is. And the kinsman comes by, and the reason you're doing it in front of these men, these kind of city judges sitting at the city gate, is because they need to witness what's going to happen. Boaz lays out the situation before the man. There's a relative of ours. Her name is Ruth. She widowed. Do you remember her husband? Oh, yeah, Mahlon. And the name is Mahlon, by the way, which has a nice tie-in here to Center Chapel. And you remember, okay, yeah. Oh, guess what? She needs a husband, and you're closest to her. Okay? So Naomi's giving up what little property she has, and the duty of this nearer kinsman is to buy it so that the inheritance stays with the family. There would be kind of a dowry kind of thing. You got to buy the inheritance so that it's transferring over to this little side of the family. And to our dismay, look what the kinsman says at the end of verse 4. I will redeem it. I'll do it. I'll marry Ruth. I'll do this. And so you can imagine the people hearing this story for the first time going, oh, man, or rats or whatever they said 3,000 years ago. It might have been rats. I don't know. We don't want him to redeem it. We don't know who this guy is. We don't know what kind of person this man is. Is he infused with God? Does he greet people and talk about God? For all we know, he may be a gambler. He may be a big drinker. We don't know anything about this guy. He's showing up on the scene. He's going to ruin everything. So we don't want that to happen. We want Boaz to do it. We want Ruth and Boaz to end up together. It's kind of a match made on the threshing floor, so to speak. So there's this setback, right? The irony of the setback, however, is that it's being caused by righteousness. What a strange thought. This problem is occurring because this relative is doing the right thing. He's doing what he is supposed to do. It's my responsibility. I'm going to do it. And we're like, no, right? Don't do it. That's not what we want. He's only doing his duty. Sometimes highways are clogged up by accidents, right? On the way here tonight, 2 separate accidents on my backtracking across. A tree fell on a car. Oh, bad. I haven't seen lots of storms. I don't know what caused the tree to fall, but it had crushed the car. Cops on either end of the road. And then over here on Hobson Pike, 2 cars looked like they had crossed over, smacked each other. It didn't look that terrible, but 2 separate accidents. Sometimes delays and highways are clogged up by accidents. Sometimes, as will be the case when I go home tonight, going by the airport up here, highways are clogged by workers trying to make things better. Doing the right thing still causes inconvenience. Sometimes bad things cause inconvenience, right? This guy is causing what we would view as a bad thing by doing the right thing. Our frustrations can be caused by sin, but sometimes by very apparently ill-timed righteousness. Now's the time you're doing the right thing, right? It's the same kind of thing, right? Outcomes can be what we don't want. Even sometimes, if people are trying to do the right thing, it gums up what we are hoping for. And so here, we don't want that. We don't know anything about this guy. Keep moving. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. We need to clear the path for Boaz. Just as we're about to say, oh no, stop the story. Don't let this guy marry Ruth. Don't let that happen. Stop it. Run away. Get this guy out of here. Just as we're about to say that, Boaz says, well, by the way, you know that Naomi, this is the property this man was going to buy. You know he's got a daughter-in-law, so when you do the part of the kinsman redeemer, you're going to have to take her as your wife. It's not just property you got to buy. When you do that, you're also marrying into the family. You are prepared, aren't you? Take a wife that you've never met, that you've never seen. Behind door number 3, right? This is your wife today or whatever over here. So you're going to take her as your wife, and yes, you must raise up offspring in the name of your relative, this deceased husband, Mahlon. Then to our great relief, the kinsman now says in verse 6, I can't do it. Whew. Maybe it's going to work out after all. Why did he change his mind? I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to be married. Maybe he was already married. Some of the men back in those days had more than one wife. And this levirate marriage law, this thing that's described in the book of Deuteronomy, does not excuse a man if he already had a wife. Maybe he doesn't want to have to say, honey, we're going to have another woman living with us. Maybe that was a conversation he just didn't want to have. Don't know. He changes his tune. One of those reasons is what's going on here. We don't know what it is. But whatever the reason, we're cheering in the background. All right, the path is cleared now for Boaz. He's gotten through this setback, this potential diversion here, and it's right back now, if you will. He's on this road where he had the detour. He's right back on the road, driving straight to the wedding and the reception with Ruth. The path is cleared. You can hear the bells ringing at the wedding chapel. As the guy says, no, I'm out of here. I'm not about to tell you, whatever the reason was. But there's a cloud still in the picture. Remember? Ruth has been barren for 10 years. She was married for 10 years with no children. Now, back then, women were often pregnant in the first year of being married. There were no ways of postponing such events until a time more of your choosing, as there is today. Do you like how I use that language to just kind of reference something and dance around it all without saying anything? That's an art I've had to learn the hard way. But she's barren. She's never had any children. That's strange. Now, some people in the Bible are barren. Think about Abraham and Sarah. They went a long time with no children. Well, the reason for that? They were half brother, half sister. Sometimes that means it's not an easy thing to have conception going on. So sometimes being too closely related means that when the process of having a child is beginning, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. There can be, specifically it can be genetic abnormalities that mean that a pregnancy that's beginning doesn't progress very far. I don't know whether that was going on with Abram and Sarah. I don't have any idea, but that happens a lot sometimes as people were continuing to marry their first cousins, which happens a lot in the book of Genesis. We don't know what's going on here. Ruth is in Moab. I doubt she's related to Naomi and her sons. That's probably not what's going on here, but we don't know what's going on. Does she have some sort of a physical problem? Did her husband Mahlon have some sort of physical problem? We don't know, but there's no child. There is no child. That's why she's supposed to get married. Sure, it's going to be to help take care of Ruth and Naomi, but it's also to raise up offspring for the inheritance of the family and keep it going. Ruth has not been able to have children. That's a problem. Or at least, it seems to be that she's barren. She hasn't had children. In Ruth 1:4, we had been told that she had been married 10 years. There were no children. So even now, they're going to get married. You can hear the bells at the wedding chapel and all that kind of stuff. The cake's coming out. I do love wedding cake. I tend to get in line 3 or 4 times. I time it so people aren't seeing me quite as often. But there was a lady at Creve Hall, I call her the cake whisperer because she makes some of the best cake I've ever had in my life. And she got so used to me showing up, almost like I wanted to go to weddings. I didn't even know the people if I knew she was making the cake. But she would just say, Gene's in line, cut him a big slab, so I'd get this big old whopping slab of the cake. Great stuff. My wife reached out for Christmas, and she made, it was hilarious. There's a picture I might share with you. My own individual wedding cake for Christmas. It had one groom on the top of it, supposed to be me. It was hilarious, but I had the whole cake. I mean, I love wedding cake. So there's going to be a marriage, but what now? What now? Okay? One lesson we need to take from the book of Ruth is that the life of a godly individual is rarely a straight line. It's rarely a straight line where things just go exactly as we plan them out. There's bumps in the road. There's detours we have to take. Sometimes we got to take those because I'm the one that makes the bad choice. I'm the one that messes it up. Sometimes somebody else in my life makes a bad choice and messes it up. But the fact that it's not a straight line doesn't mean we can't get to where we need to be. And that's very clear here in the book of Ruth. Detours. Who's this guy that's going to take Boaz's place? They're going to ruin it. They're going to do something in the middle of the night that's sinful. It's going to ruin this beautiful possible story here. One after the other. Setbacks, right? It is true that life is one curve after another. We don't know what's coming, but we may not know what's coming, but as I said, we can know where we're going. And that's the important way to handle things when we don't know what's coming. We need to know where we're going. So let's take a look. The cloud over the head with Ruth and Boaz is big with mercy, but it turns out this cloud is a lovely rain cloud because it breaks with blessing on their heads in verse 13 of chapter 4. Here's what we read. And back in, this should say 4:13, sorry about that. Boaz took Ruth, they got married, she became his wife. And he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception. Look at that again. The Lord gave her conception. She's pregnant, and she bore a son. Barren no more. Barren no more. We don't know why she never had children in the 10 years she was married before, but that's in the past. Look at her now. Look at her now. There's the descendant for the family of her deceased husband. She's got a provider who is certainly looking after a mother-in-law too, right? He didn't just marry a wife, he married in with a mother-in-law to take care of her. But the baby is not the final part of the story, and it's the very end of the book that I think makes me think why it's really not named properly or correctly. Look at the focus in verses 14 through 17. Then the women said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord." Wonderful way to start. God should always be given the praise. "Blessed be the Lord who has not left you this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your own age, your old age." Okay? We're talking, it sounds like Boaz. Boaz is going to be the one that will help look after her in her old age, but there's a hidden meaning behind redeemer here as well. Look how it finishes. "Your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons," because she stuck with Naomi through thick and thin, "has given birth to him." The Redeemer is the baby. Him. The way you do pronouns, right? The most recent reference. The son that's born to Ruth is the antecedent. If only Amy were in here, she'd be so proud at knowing that we remember some English. The antecedent, right? "Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse." She's a grandma, finally. She is a grandma, finally. And yes, I got new pictures of my granddaughter. Y'all can see them when we're done. That's the way grandparents are. She has him on her lap, became his nurse. She's taking care of the little baby. And the women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, look at this, "A son has been born to Naomi." Naomi didn't give birth to this boy. Ruth did. But it's Naomi's life, if you will, that has finally been put back on track. The whole book is about Naomi getting off track and having bad things happen in her life, having detours, having roadblocks, having accidents on that avenue, and she seems to have forgotten where she was going. And here at the very end, She's back on track. She's no longer wanting to be called Mara and bitter. She's not any longer complaining about all the terrible things that have happened to her. She's going to be a giggling, laughing grandmother with this little baby who's in her lap. They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David, which makes, as we talked about, Boaz King David's great-grandfather. King David's great-grandfather. The child is the Redeemer. How is the child the Redeemer? Look at verse 17. Whoops, let me back up. If you look at verse 17, the Redeemer is the fact that through this baby, through this little baby, Obed, is going to be born the Messiah. Through this baby is going to be the Redeemer with a capital R. Because through the book of Ruth, Ruth herself becomes part of the ancestry of Jesus born in Bethlehem, same place where they are. And so Naomi's little scheming, right, of sending Ruth over, go over and talk to Boaz, he'll tell you what to do, and all their interactions, and the man giving his shoe to Boaz, we didn't mention that, but that's how you signified the contracts being passed. All of that involved here ends up being how this baby, a long line of people afterward, is the way that Naomi's sins and ours are going to be forgiven. What an amazing thing to have a little baby born that makes her so happy after all the sadness that she's had. Turns out to be the beginning of this line, as it were, the next step in that line for her own redemption, her own salvation from sin. Naomi's name at the beginning of the book was bitter. Remember, she said, call me Mara. Don't call me pleasant. Don't call me sweet. Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara. The story began with Naomi's loss. Husband, 2 sons. It ends with Naomi's gain. It began with death and ends with birth. All these contrasts here in the short little story. And it's a son born here at the end for whom? The son's born to Ruth, but verse 7 is this great destination of her long and twisting road where this son is born for her, but the son actually is a continuation of blessing all of us. Because in this little story, they take their place in fulfilling that promise made to Abraham so many years before that has blessed the whole world, including each and every one of us. The women of the neighborhood gave him a name, the boy a name, saying a son has been born to Naomi, not to Ruth, but to Naomi. Why? Remember, to show that it was not true, to contradict the claim that Naomi had made all the way back in chapter 1, verse 20, that the Lord had brought her back empty from Moab. Well, no, he didn't. She just didn't see what the Lord had in mind for her. And I think that's the real other lesson to take from this. I want to try to do it. I hope all of us will. We always are so short-sighted. We look at the troubles of the moment, the problems that we have, the heartache, the tragedy, the despair, and we can't see beyond the next minute. I mean, people in here have lost people dear to you. We all have lost something. And if we haven't yet, give it time, right? Heartache comes. Heartache comes. And it's just, maybe it's part of the human condition. But remember, the great-grandson of this, David, when we were talking about David and Bathsheba, the child born out of that union of David and Bathsheba is sick immediately upon being born. Do you remember the story of what David does? He goes and lays flat on the ground for 6, 7, 8 days, however long it was. I don't remember that. But he's laying flat on the ground, refusing to eat, refusing to do anything because he is pleading with God to spare the life of the baby. And the servants start talking kind of differently, and David knows the baby's dead. He can tell. And he gets up, and he immediately cleans himself up, takes something to eat, and they say, well, why are you doing this now? He said, well, the child won't come to me. The child's dead. What's the point of being upset now? Be upset when you're pleading with God to spare the life. He won't come to me, but I will go to him. And so I want to remember that I need to look beyond the problems right now. David did. I'm going to be going to him. I got to look past that. And so the little story here of Naomi, so focused on the tragedy of the moment, has no idea the joy. Do you think she's still calling herself bitter at this point? She's got the gurgling little boy on her lap. I mean, I hope he spat up all over her. She'd probably go, look what my grandbaby did. Look at that. Come take a look at this. Looks like a piece of art right here. The grandparents don't care. And I can't imagine she's not just happy as all can be. The ladies of the town are feeling that way too. If we could just learn to wait and trust God, any complaints we might make against God, any complaints we might feel toward God are going to be proven untrue. Just got to wait. Patience is definitely a virtue, very much so. So the book of Ruth wants to teach us that God's purpose for the life of his people, that's all of us, is to connect with something greater than ourselves. God wants us to know when we follow him, our lives are going to mean more than we think they do. There's a reason you are here. There's a reason I am here. And when I'm feeling depressed, down, or in grief, I'm not really focusing on why I'm here. It's a pity party. And I've been in the pity. I'm using those words knowing I have been in pity party before. But when I'm feeling that way, I'm not focused on other people. I'm just looking at myself. So for the Christian, there's always this connection with anything we do in our lives to this great work of God in history, the great story of redemption, the huge story the Bible tells us. And it doesn't have to be some magnificent thing. I don't need to build a huge, 10,000 seat church somewhere in order to contribute to that great story of God. It can be as simple. Remember what Jesus said? Is anyone that gives a cup of water. Everything I do to help others and to spread joy and to ease pain and to ease grief is another step on that path of knowing where we're going. Everything. Everything's part of this huge painting of all history of where God accomplishes his purpose. And as long as I make my little effort to paint that one little block by number over here in the corner, I'm part of that huge story, just like Naomi turned out to be. So our life needs to be that it's not given over to trivialities or to trifles. You got this widowed mother-in-law, the woman gleaning in the field, falling in love, having a baby. It sounds like just a story of somebody living, but it's all connected to that big overriding plan. After all, out of this story comes another step in the path that leads to Jesus. And so they and we are such a part of something so much bigger than you might really think. I want us to remember that. Cute little story, makes a great movie. You can find that, I'm sure. The movie for Ruth is on Netflix or one of those free TV channels that you see that we never seem to turn on anywhere. But I want us to remember that the next time something seems to go wrong in our lives and try to find a way to look beyond what's right in front of me. Remember where we're going. I want to thank everybody for being in the class. We'll be back here Sunday. Remember, young people are supposed to sit down front Sunday. I told them that tonight. If you need to have somebody near the young person to make sure they stay seated and all that stuff, just sit down a little closer. And if anybody, I may figure out a way to do this too. If any child is gluten sensitive, I'll have to have a little heads up for that. Make sure you check any of the treats I give them, because once I hand them a bag, all my responsibility, I'm going to think, is over with what they do with it. So if we know of any gluten sensitive kids when we're doing snacks back here, somebody please tell me. Thank you all. Remember, there are some snacks and drinks for all of us down the hall. And once the kids are done, we'll help put everything up for Sunday. Thanks for being here.